In 2010, something very strange was happening at Iran's top-secret nuclear enrichment facilities. Deep underground, hundreds of high-speed centrifuges, the machines used to enrich uranium, were suddenly, inexplicably tearing themselves apart. They would speed up to uncontrollable velocities and then suddenly slam on the brakes, vibrating so violently that they self-destructed. This was no bomb, no missile strike, no human sabotage. The engineers were baffled. The culprit wasn't a physical weapon. It was a ghost in the machine, a piece of malicious computer code we now call Stuxnet. Stuxnet was a digital bomb made of pure code, widely believed to have been developed by the United States and Israel, though never officially acknowledged by either. It was designed to find one specific type of industrial controller at one specific facility in the world and to destroy it. Many analysts saw this as the digital equivalent of a shot heard round the world, a turning point that marked the arrival of a new era in warfare. It was the first undeniable proof that a cyber attack could cross the digital-physical divide, leaving the virtual world and causing real, kinetic, physical destruction, achieving a military goal that previously would have required a bombing run. The future of war had arrived. But Stuxnet was just the beginning. It revealed that cyberspace had officially become a new domain of warfare, joining land, sea, air, and space. In an earlier video, we talked about the return of great power competition. In this video, we're going to argue that technology is no longer just a tool that the powerful use. It's become central arenas to that political fight. From the social media algorithms that can fuel populism, to the cyber attacks that can shut down the power grid, to a new rise of new superpowers like Google, Apple, and Amazon, technology is challenging the most fundamental concepts in international relations. Because how can you control your borders from an attack when those attacks occur at the speed of light? What does sovereignty even mean in a world where a private company, not a government, controls your country's access to battlefield communications? Or where foreign powers can use artificial intelligence and big data to secretly shape your elections? This is the story of technological disruption, the new battlefields of cyber, AI, and the fight for data. Stuxnet arrival announced a new reality. Cyberspace is now the fifth domain of conflict. For all of modern history, international relations theory was built on four domains: land, sea, air, and by the 20th century, space. But this new human-made domain challenges all those rules. Why is it such a radical disruptor? First, it creates an attribution problem. Think about the Stuxnet attack. For years, no one officially knew who did it, and this shatters the traditional logic of deterrence. In the Cold War, deterrence worked because of mutually assured destruction. Each side knew that if they launched their missiles, the other would do the same. But how can you retaliate if you don't know who to retaliate against? Was the attack on your power grid a state-sponsored act of war by Russia or China? Was it a patriotic hacker group that was tolerated by a state? Or was it a for-profit criminal ransomware gang like the one that shut down the Colonial Pipeline just looking for a payday? And in that uncertainty, the old rules of deterrence and collective defense begin to break down. Second, this new domain marks the end of borders. This is the ultimate challenge to sovereignty. A hostile power can now shut down a rival's financial systems, hospitals, transportation networks, without a single soldier crossing a border. Geography no longer offers protection from attack. Oceans and walls are irrelevant. An attack can come from anywhere on Earth at the speed of light. It's not just a new weapon, it represents a fundamental shift in how power and security operate in the 21st century. And states are no longer the only players in this new domain. In traditional IR theory, we are trained to think about states like the US or China, or maybe institutions like the United Nations. But today we have a new set of actors that in some ways are just as powerful, if not more so, big tech. Companies like Apple, Google's parent company Alphabet, Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, Amazon, and Microsoft on the US side face off against Chinese tech giants like Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba. These aren't just companies anymore, they're full-blown geopolitical actors, largely because they control the new territory. They own the digital infrastructure of our lives. They own the cloud where our data is stored, like Amazon Web Services. They own the phone operating systems like Apple and Google. They control digital public squares where we get our news and form our opinions, Meta, X, and TikTok. Second, these companies also set the rules. When a company like Twitter, now X, or Facebook decides to ban a sitting US president from their platform, or when they decide what counts as COVID misinformation versus legitimate debate, they're making a governance decision that affects billions of people. This is an act of sovereignty. And third, they've become the new East India companies. States now depend on them for critical state functions. Perhaps the most dramatic example of this is Starlink. In 2022, the Ukrainian military battlefield communications, their ability to fly drones and coordinate attacks, depended almost entirely on Elon Musk's private satellite network, Starlink. This gave a single individual what was effectively a veto over a sovereign nation's ability to wage war. This is a stunning shift in global power, and it brings us back to our theme of great power competition. The fight between the United States and China is now a form of techno-nationalism. The battle over Huawei and 5G wasn't just a trade dispute, it was a strategic fight over who could build the data backbone of the 21st century. The panic in Washington over TikTok isn't just about dance videos. It's about a Chinese-owned algorithm shaping the thoughts and consuming the data of 150 million Americans. The liberal dream of a single, global, open internet appears dead. Instead, we're now moving towards a splinternet, a US-led sphere with its apps and rules, and a China-led sphere of its own. So if the new battlefield is digital, and if the new actors are tech companies, what are the weapons? The most valuable strategic resource in the 21st century may not be oil, it's likely data. The entire business model of the internet, from Google search engines to Meta's social reality, is built on harvesting vast amounts of personal data. But in the great power competition, this data has been transformed into a geopolitical asset, and we're seeing two very different models for controlling it. On the one hand, we have the Chinese model, where the state is in charge. Through tools like the Great Firewall, which censors the internet, and the emerging social credit system, the state uses technology to achieve near total information control over its population. Facial recognition, data tracking, and AI are all used to monitor, reward, or punish citizen behavior. This is a sovereignty-enhancing model, and it's a model that China is now actively exporting to other authoritarian regimes around the world. On the other hand, we have the US model, rooted in a market system of control. Here, the state doesn't own the data, private companies do. Scholars like Susanna Zubhoff call this surveillance capitalism. Companies like Meta and Google harvest your data and predict your behavior and sell it to advertisers. This model actually weakens state sovereignty by creating private corporations that, in many ways, know more about the population than the government does. But this data isn't just used for ads. It's the fuel for a second, even more potent potential weapon, disinformation. States can use the very tools of surveillance capitalism, the algorithms built by Facebook and Twitter, to directly interfere in the sovereign domestic politics of their rivals. They can identify the most divided, angry, and partisan groups within another country and then use bots and fake accounts to feed them a steady stream of inflammatory content. They don't have to invent the divisions, they just have to find them and amplify them. And this allows them to weaken their rivals from the inside out at a tiny fraction of the cost of traditional wars. It's another, more subtle way that technology has shattered our old ideas of borders and sovereignty. But all of this, the data harvesting, the cyber attacks, the disinformation, is really just the prelude. The massive ocean of data isn't just being used to sell ads. It's the fuel for what many believe might be the ultimate disruptor, artificial intelligence. AI is not just another tool. It's what economists refer to as a general-purpose technology, like the steam engine or electricity. It's a technology that won't just change one industry. It changes everything from medicine and finance to, perhaps most importantly for our purposes, international relations. The launch of models like ChatGPT was a new Sputnik moment, a reference to the 1957 shock of the Soviet satellite that kicked off the original space race. Today, the great power competition we talked about in our last video has, at its core, become an AI arms race. Indeed, as Russian President Vladimir Putin himself said, whoever becomes the ruler of this sphere will become the ruler of the world.
This is why the US-China chip war is so intense. This isn't a simple trade dispute. When the US blocks Chinese access to the most advanced semiconductors, it's a strategic move to cut off the fuel needed to train the next generation of powerful AI models. And the most terrifying frontier for this race is the battlefield. We're moving beyond cyber war into the realm of lethal autonomous weapons systems or killer robots. We're talking about AI powered drone swarms that could hunt and make decisions as a collective, AI piloted fighter jets, and AI driven battle management systems that can assess threats and recommend or even execute lethal actions faster than any human could respond. This creates a terrifying new challenge to sovereignty and international law. What happens when an AI, not a human, makes the final decision? Who's responsible? The programmer, the general who deployed it, the AI itself? Who, in other words, is sovereign in the decision to take a human life?
Technology has fundamentally broken the old rules of international relations. It's created a new borderless domain of conflict, cyberspace, where attribution is difficult and often deniable, and traditional notions of territorial security no longer apply. It spawned new corporate superpowers, big tech, that challenge the sovereignty of states. And it's turned data, disinformation, and AI into the primary weapons of the 21st century. The great power competition between the US and China is, at its core, a high stakes, high tech race for digital and artificial supremacy. This battle for technological dominance, this virtual, digital, human made competition, is all consuming. But while the great powers are locked in this fight for the future, they're all being threatened by a much slower, perhaps more powerful, and non human force. A crisis in our physical world that doesn't care about borders, our politics, or our algorithms.